Hello, everyone. I am here with Eyal. He really interesting. He works for a very interesting firm. It's a venture capital firm. It's called 97212. I don't even know what that means, but I'm very excited to hear what it means. He their company, this firm invests in mainly Israeli companies, pre-seed. So these are very young companies, and I don't even know what you guys do. So I'm just here to listen. But Ayel, tell me about yourself. I know you're in New York, which is very unique because you invest in Israeli companies. Tell me how you got here. What's your story? What how'd you end up here?
So first of all, glad to be here, Shaul. Thank you for the invite. I'm excited to share some stories. Hopefully, some of them will make you laugh.
Yes,
I promise not to make you cry. So,
yes, only laughter.
um, yeah, I grew up in Israel. I had no intentions to come to the U.S. My parents never made it to the U.S. before. My parents are Iraqi. They're hard blue
Hard
collar
work.
people. My mom was a nurse at a hospital. My dad was working at a factory that produces yeast to make bread. And when I was in the army, I took an SAT course for the Israeli schools, the Israeli university, and I ended up sitting near a guy that eventually became one of my best friends. And he ended up going to UConn. And I basically said, well, this is looks pretty cool. I'm gonna go and do a summer course there and see how it is, just in case, so um, I don't kind of miss on the opportunity.
Yeah,
And
don't miss the boat. Yeah,
exactly, right. So back then I was young. I didn't really think that much, which was probably a plus, right? Like when you get older,
yeah,
you think a lot stuff, a
yeah.
lot more about stuff.
Yeah.
um, and I ended up going to UConn for the summer, and I really loved it. um, I loved the fact that it was like just bigger. Everything was in English. The
Mhm.
campus was big. I back then I played basketball. I could go to the basketball court, and everything was like nice and shiny and new. And I said, what? Maybe what I should do is buy the college book and call coaches of basketball teams out of colleges in New York and New Jersey. And if someone's going to give me a scholarship, I'll stay. Um, and this was probably my first entrepreneurial journey.
Nice.
I bought the college book and I basically started calling coaches, and I went to like College of New Jersey and Queens College and a bunch of other schools. And then the coach of a school called Kane in New Jersey basically told me, listen, I'm happy to bring you in, even though I haven't seen you, right? And this is pre-YouTube days, right? So it's like
Yeah.
25 years ago, and or whatever it is, 20 plus years ago. And but I don't have a spot now. This is like, end of August, we're starting school like basically tomorrow. Why don't you come next year and I'll help you out? And I was like,
Nice.
okay. Long story short, 20 years later, I'm here in Westchester. I live in New Rochelle. I have 3 kids, and I did my 2 degrees in New York. I did my first degree in communications in at Kane, and then worked at CBS News Radio for a year or two to get some experience, and then went to NYU for my master's. Um, Ran business for an e-learning company for about 4 years, and then saw a need to help founders out of Israel and out of other countries to kind of tap into New York.
Right.
And 2015, I started Iconic, which was the first accelerator for Israeli startups at a pre-seed and seed stage, looking to expand to New York, kind of give them kind of a foothold in the US market and specifically in New York. And then earlier this year, I started 97212. Any guesses? Like what's the meaning of those numbers?
I mean, is it a zip code? I'm assuming.
So no,
No.
but that's a guess that some other people guessed as well. So it's not the zip code of Portland, Oregon. Um,
Hmm.
it is, however, a combination of Israel country code, which is 972. So if you ever
Nice.
call Israel, right, like plus
Correct.
972,
Yeah.
and then 212, which is New York area code when you call New York. Um, so 97212 with just 1 2, right? So
Yeah.
the whole premise is Israel to New York, moving the company from the Israeli market to the New York market to the US market and cutting time to market. So this is the idea behind that.
I love the combination, honestly. That's very smart. I like that a
Yeah, and
lot.
you won't believe how I actually ended up coming with it. I owe it to a guy named Paul. during COVID, me and my family moved to Spain for 6 months. We basically said this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to just get out of New York and work remotely from anywhere, right? So
Wow, yeah.
um, we did. I moved so we moved, and there was a couple other families and friends who moved with us, and one of them was this guy Paul, who was also a founder and a CEO of a company, and he said, what is the Israeli country code and what is like New York? Why don't you combine them, because this is really your theme? And this idea really came at a heat class.
Love it.
So we trained a little bit, and I was like, I'm like lifting weights. I'm like, oh, this is cool, and I can't breathe, right? So
Wow, that's a great story. So
yeah,
it's very
yeah,
new. You're this venture capital firm that you created. It's pretty new. It's what you said. It's a year, a little more than a year.
it's actually less than a year. We launched kind of unofficially in January of this year. I raised money for a few months. I'm building a fund that is really focused more on the people. Obviously, there is every fund needs to have capital. I'm raising 20 million. I'm almost at the end of the tail end of raising it. The idea is to be that go-to fund for Israeli founders at an early stage, looking to build a company in the US via New York, to basically be the go-to for them. So when they want to build a company, when they want to get funded, they come to us because they know that we can really give them much more than just capital. We can give them value when it comes to access to customers, partners, the venture scene here in New York, obviously, advisors, talents, and even just to be an advisor, right? So like, when should I raise my next round? And, how should my cap table be? And some back channeling with other VCs and other people we connect them to, right, et cetera. So I think we're pretty unique in the sense that we are Israeli, but we also Americans, right? So I think I know how Israelis think because I grew up there, and
Yeah.
I know the language pretty well, right? Because I'm Israeli, for the rest of my life, I'm always going to be Israeli.
Correct.
But I think I've experienced New York and the US for so long that I can give some of my expertise, my network, and my the know-how to founders to help them kind of cut time and avoid mistakes that typically happen when you go to a new place.
I think it's very amazing. I think it's really going to help. First, it's really going to help these startups because I think one of the hardest things for startups is to get above it. They have an amazing idea, they have amazing talent, but to get into the market, I feel like that's a very hard thing. That's the hardest part. People believing in you, or creating a vision that people will believe in you, like marketing it right. You have to market it.
Yeah. I think what's really interesting is last year was so easy to raise capital, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah,
it's always hard, right? But it was so much easier, right? Because there was so much capital. Everyone was like just looking for the next startup to invest in, etc. But the real work is after you get funded, right? And now it's exactly the opposite. Like, there's no shortage of capital, but everyone is very thoughtful. The diligence is a lot longer, etc. And now you really look for that fund or investor who can really help you go to market and help you make it to the next milestone, the next one, etc. And this is what we bring to the table. And we feel pretty good about our position and about what we're trying to build here. And I think the founders we invested in so far, they're pretty happy. And we should probably talk to them in one of your next shows. But
sure.
I think every day is exciting. Every day is a new day, and in startup mode, you go to war every day, right? So you got to bring that energy, and hopefully good things happen.
Yeah, I mean, the world of startups is such an amazing world. It's so unique. I mean, it's also very unique. Just Israeli startups in particular, they're very. I mean, it's a startup nation, honestly. So seeing what Israeli companies can do and getting them to a place where they need to be is just it's a very special thing, honestly. You're really creating something. It's something that's basically nothing or very small. You're creating something that some of them have gone to be massive companies that change the world. So it's being like being in that space, getting these companies to where they need to be. It's a very special thing. Having the ability to do that. Most people, I mean, it's only because of your expertise and your years and years of knowledge that you're able to offer this, which is amazing. So I think
Yeah, it is. It really is true. I think the startup is a very long game, right? Like,
yeah,
um, you start on day one and you're gonna go through a lot of pivots and you're gonna go through a lot
yeah,
of like ups and downs, and team members are gonna come and go, and investors are gonna have good days with you and they're gonna have pretty bad days with you, right? And um, I think it's really special for me to go in on the very first floor and to see the two guys in the garage, and then after a year and 2 years and 3 years, suddenly it's 50 employees and 100 employees and two rounds of funding, and kind of and a nice PR, and a big customer comes in, and you just see this evolve, and you develop also that friendship with the founders, which lasts for a very long time.
yeah,
And I think we have a different dynamic because we're not sitting on boards. We're coming from a position of, we're very much aligned. And I think that helps bring something very unique and special to the table. Um, but it's hard, right? Like, I think not a lot of people have that level of patience and belief and optimism. I mean, you really have to be this like crazy optimist person that's gonna think that, even if the world's against us, something good is gonna happen tomorrow,
yeah,
because you just gotta get up there and do it, right? So
yeah.
yeah, so I mean, listen, I think at the end of the day, um I've been doing this for a while, and there's definitely some hard moments, but I wouldn't want to do anything else, because I feel
Yeah.
like it brings me a lot of joy to see other founders succeed, and and fulfill their dreams.
100%. I mean, so many of the companies I speak to, I'm like, how'd you come up with this idea? They're like, we didn't. We came up with another idea, and then that didn't work. So we came up with another idea. And then the third idea was this idea. I'm like, it's always a journey. And even what they have right now could evolve into something even different, like there is no set path for a startup. It's like it's crazy roller coaster. And
Yeah.
it's amazing. But I'm saying for the actual founders, the people, it must be very scary. I don't even know the feeling. But it must be very, any day, everything's always, you have to be able to adapt also, always. You can't say my idea is amazing, I have to stick with it. You can't. The next idea.
Yeah, it's true. It's really true that it's about the journey, not the destinations. For the most part, right? Like, I think a lot of founders who want to do this because they want to make a lot of money actually end up not succeeding, because
Mm.
you really have to do this because you want to build something unique, you want to build something differentiated, etc. Um, and I think it's true. You really have to be, I think, very resilient as a founder, right? A lot of times,
Mm.
like, I invested in a company called Connect Team pretty early in their life cycle, right? And they had like a few employees, and they were, starting, I mean, trying a few things, and had a few customers. And I think at some point, the CEO replaced like two of his co-founders, and those two co-founders were like family members. So I'm sure it was very hard for him. But he felt like he needed like a different set of skill set and experience to come to the team. And he ended up just starting to cruise, and got to like $1 million in revenue and a bunch of customers. And then a year later, it was like 3 million. And then COVID hit, and really kind of like the company skyrocketed, because what they do is it's a platform, it's an app for deskless employees who are outside of the office and need a better way to communicate between themselves and the organization.
Well, he has a
And
perfect app.
right,
Wow.
right. So it's like, basically Slack for deskless employees.
Yeah.
And you just look at the company today, they have like hundreds of employees, they have like thousands of customers. And 5-6 years ago, I mean, the whole world passed on it, right? Like, I mean, he couldn't raise money, and now everyone's standing in line, right? So I think he also, like, yeah, there's some moments that kind of, you gotta have a little bit of luck, but you gotta like make sure you're there when the luck happens, right? So
Exactly.
um so yeah, so there's a lot of stories like this. And I feel like, when I started this, I was like, oh, cool idea, good team. But I think a lot of what I'm looking for today is like, how long has the team been together? Like, can this CEO tell a story? Can he be resilient? Can he go through the ups and downs
Yeah.
of building this company, or is just going to move on to the next thing, right? So I must say, Israelis, they have this like level of pride, and sometimes like you want to tell him like, listen, nothing works, like move on. And then he comes up with something and it works, right? So, um,
It's
so
very
yeah,
unique.
it's a very exciting time.
Yeah. Now, how many, like, how do you work? How many, do you have employees? Do you have other people working at the company? How does that work? Tell me about that, like the structure a little bit.
Sure. So I am, I'm in the belief that you really have to expand your network and you really have to make sure that everyone feels happy, right? So
100%.
I have three, because my fund is very small and there's not a lot of economics. I'm what they call a solo GP, right? So a solo general partner. Um, but I do have three venture partners, one in Israel, one in New York, and one in Seattle. And I have a bunch of LPs who are helping me on a regular basis. Some of them are big names in the industry. So I developed this system where, and also we have an operating partner who's putting in about 50% of his time into the fund. His name is Ronnie, and he's basically helping companies post investment and helps us with branding, etc. And there's just many things that I outsource, like many other funds, when it comes to accounting, legal, etc. So a lot of it goes through me, but I have a team of venture partners and investors who all are aligned because everyone invested in the fund. So it's like everyone's baby, right? So my goal is obviously to expand the fund, to bring in an associate over the next couple months, and then hopefully in fund two to bring in another partner, who's going to be a full-time partner and raise more capital, etc. So my story in that sense is not very different than many other solo GP funds who started pretty small, 10, 15, 20 million. And then once they expanded a little bit beyond that, they were able to build kind of a proper team.
Interesting. Well, it's really cool. Yeah, that seems like a great path to be on. And everyone's in the same boat as you. It doesn't matter how much they invest. They need that fund to grow. They want it to grow. They got, everyone's behind you. Equal partners. Everyone's got. We all want it to grow. So, I
And
like
everyone
that.
has skin in the game, right? So when
Everyone has.
everyone has skin in the game, one time an investor told me, "But I don't want to see advisors on a deck where no one puts money in because it just means that no one really has skin in the game." And
Exactly. You want people that believe because they have something to lose. Yeah.
correct,
Or something to gain.
correct,
Yeah. Yeah.
correct.
Something to gain.
And I think a lot of I'd say most of the LPs, they have a relationship with me for many years, and they want to do this not just also for their financial gain obviously, but also because they want me and the fund to be successful. And I think that's really interesting because it's not just, I think that's what's really unique about small funds. It's not like a big fund of like 150 or 200 million and there's a lot of institutional capital, etc., where it's a lot about the numbers. Here it is about the numbers, but also about, I'm going to be super excited to see Eyal succeed and 972 to succeed because I want this to be successful, right? And I'm putting capital, I'm putting time, right? So
I like that. Wow. So the fund's very new, and I mean, it seems like you got on the right track. It seems like you're on the right track, and I mean, who knows where it's going to be in a few years? Who knows? It's almost like a startup, just it's a fund. It's a startup fund for startups. So like, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? You're on the path now, but anything can happen. Hopefully, and it's
totally,
always, yeah, it's very cool.
totally,
You
totally.
know
Yeah,
the
yeah. We're,
journey.
we're a startup ourselves, and
Yeah.
just relating to your point, one of my LPs is Modi Rosen, who is the founder of Magma Capital and Amity Ventures, and he was one of the early investors or the first investor in Waze and AppsFlyer and a bunch of other really successful companies. And he told me, you never know who's going to be a winner at that stage, right? Like you just don't know. And I think that's very true, right? Like you want to do your best and live with the results, and you just don't know what's going to happen in 5 years or 4 years or 6 years.
There's no way, no. Everything changes so rapidly, especially these days. When the pandemic came, that company that you just said, they blew up because of that. But you would have never been able to know that would happen. How would you know that? Anything can happen. Yeah. So you just got to get with a good team, a good vision, something that they have, something special, and see where it goes. Yeah.
Or I couldn't agree more.
Well, I this first of all, this I've I've spoken to a lot of companies, and I've spoken to another fund. They deal with agriculture, but this is a little different. This is very special. This is dealing really with, I don't know if you know if you have any specific types of companies you invest in. Maybe it could be any startup. Do you care what field it's in? Do you only go with
So
tech?
yeah. So obviously we invest in tech startups out of Israel or of Israeli founders who are already based in the US, specifically in New York. Um, we we basically divide this into kind of four buckets. So one of it is B2B software, so enterprise software, DevOps and tools, etc. Israelis are pretty big on that
Yeah.
and also been pretty successful. So that's one area. Health awareness, which is a growing segment for us. We see a lot of innovation in health awareness across many different segments of this category. The next one is future of work, right? Just like the company I described, right? So now with the whole remote, non-remote, things are changing. So we're looking into a bunch of companies in this segment. And then the last one is digital transformation, right? So this goes into, we invest in a company called CauseMatch, which you might be familiar with. It's basically a platform for peer-to-peer funding for nonprofits, right? So instead of doing a gala event and spending all this money, and then whatever you raise, you have to deduct like all this, investment into putting it together. So suddenly you have a platform that brings everything together. You can do a campaign. You can raise 6x more than what you typically you would be able to do, and it's all via an app basically, right? So yeah, so we look into a bunch of companies in this category. We I think at that stage also we really try to be very focused on founders, on markets, and our ability to help companies. Because if we can bring our network to help these companies grow, it's not a fit for us, right? Like our ticket is helping you, and our ticket is to be value added. And if you don't know anything, or we don't know anyone in this industry that you're working in, it's probably not for us.
Yeah. Listen, you have to spend your time on companies that you can really help, because that's where you're the most valuable. You have to, obviously you have to focus, which is very important. Yeah. So I get that. But you definitely have a lot of, you just mentioned a bunch of fields, which is huge. So you have tons of companies, tons of companies that you're going to help, that you could help, that you are helping. So that's really, yeah, it's very exciting. I don't know. It's very cool
Thank you.
seeing that. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what else. I mean, you explained what you do. It's very unique. It's very interesting. I would love to hear, in the future, that the fund is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, which hopefully it will be. And maybe we can also bring in some of the companies that you have in the fund. Maybe we can speak to some of the people there, some of the actual CEOs, and just because we love me and you both, we love speaking to these amazing founders. They're so interesting. They give me like perspectives on stuff that I never even thought were possible. Just the fortitude to always just like not give up. I'm speaking to founders, they've been working on a company for technology for 20 years. I mean, like, and it's only coming about now. This is like no one has patience like that anymore. No one.
Yeah. I think what's really interesting for me, like doing this for like 10, 15 years now, is you also see now in Israel like different types of entrepreneurs, right? Like, and if you talk about the army, right? So the army is a big generator of innovation, founders, right? So there's a very big difference between founders who came out of the 8200 unit to founders who came out of the Navy or the Air Force or the field, right? Into the field, or now I just invest in a company where it's four founders, and they all from the Delta Force, right? So Matkal in Hebrew, and it's like a whole different animal. Like these guys communicate differently, very
Yeah.
serious.
Wow.
It takes longer to get to know them. They're very measured, right? So, I think it's really interesting, right? Like we're such a small country, like 9, 10 million people, and there's so much innovation within Israel, right? Like, and there's so much diversity between founders and people. And um, I think that's very exciting, right? Like, I want to be in an area where not everyone is the same, and
Of
you get
course.
to learn from people. And you know, for me, it's every day is a new learning experience. And um, you know, you mentioned companies. One of the companies we invested in recently is a company called Gloss AI. And what they do is they take, actually, you should use it. They take long form video, like let's say a
Okay.
webinar for like
Yeah.
30, 60 minutes, and they turn it into like a 1 to 2 minute video, um, where it's just the highlights of that conversation, and you can focus on a specific speaker. You can do closed captioning, you can add music, etc. So this saves a lot of like editing time on the production side. So, you know, I'm excited to see where this company is going to go. We invested in a company in the construction tech space that is basically an app for safety in construction sites that, you know, we think can be very big. You know, there's just so many different, I think, areas of innovation right now. So I think it'll be interesting to see where the next couple of years will take us,
Yeah.
given the shift in the market from, you know, now every founder gets funded to show me what you got first, and then, you know, let's see, right?
You just got to be better now. You just got to be better, which is great. I mean, it's harder on the founders, but you just got to prove yourself a little more, and you got to be a little more, like on the ball. But it doesn't mean that these things doesn't mean that anyone's stopping anytime soon. No one's stopping. Everyone's going. They're going hard. No one.
Innovation can be stopped, and I think,
No.
you know, at the end, it's all going to just balance itself out, right? So, um, I think it'll be interesting. I think in New York, the good news is I think innovation is not going to stop, and I think New York continues to establish itself as the ecosystem for innovation, and also for specifically Israeli founders, given the time difference, right? The time zone difference, which is 7 hours versus 10 hours in the Valley.
Correct.
I think the big community of Israelis here,
Yeah.
you know, the unlimited sources of capital that we have here,
Right.
you know, the fact that you can sell to almost any customer in New York. So, you know, so I think it's an exciting time to be a founder. I think it's an exciting time to be an Israeli founder, and I think it's an exciting time to be a venture capitalist
Yeah.
in New York. And you know, obviously, only time will tell if we made the right bets. But
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, you know, all you can do is give your best, and hopefully you get a little bit lucky.
That's what it is. You just gotta go, and you'll see where you end up, and hopefully you're on the right path. That's it. Wow.
Exactly.
Eyal, thank you so much for coming on. We're definitely going to speak to you soon about your fund, and also we're going to connect with some of your founders, some of your CEOs, to speak with them too, to hear about what they do, their individual companies. And it's been really amazing. Thank you so much for being on. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the you know, the conversation, the time, and you know,
Of course.
excited to see you soon.
Thank you.